We're back with Alnwick TV, where we're going really back in history this time. I'm joined by local historians, friends and colleagues. Chris Routledge, former teacher, so I'll call him his correct name tonight, Mr. Routledge. Alright, Chris. And my good friend Peter Smith. So we're going back, way back in time, the history of the Alnwick Castle, which goes back 900 years. Chris is going to tell us about our local hero Harry Hotspur and share a bit of his story. Can you first of all tell us what it was like as a youngster for Harry Hotspur?
Yeah, well, he was born in 1364, and at the age of 9, Hotspur was going with his father into battle in France with John of Gaunt, and Hotspur got to experience people getting their heads chopped off and people basically bludgeoned to death. It was an absolutely brutal time, but that's what life was like for Hotspur. A bit different for me. When I was 9-year-old, my father was taking me to watch football matches, but maybe Hotspur had a better time of it.
Which football matches was he taking you to?
See Sunderland.
Yeah, Hotspur definitely had a better time. How did Hotspur get his name?
Right, he got his name because
he was Henry Percy, wasn't he, really?
Yeah, he was born Henry Percy, as I said, in 1364, and he was involved in raids with the Percy army across the border into Scotland, and he was recognised as being very quick on his horse, straight into battle. They'd go into villages, they'd pillage, and they'd just kill anyone who got in the way. And the Scots nicknamed him Hotspur, Hat-Spewer, because he was very quick with his spurs, digging him into the horse to make the horse go quicker, and the Scots could never catch him. So they nicknamed him Hat-Spewer, which was shortened to Hotspur, and Harry for Henry, so he became known as Harry Hotspur by about the age of 14 or 15.
Hence the reason his name is synonymous within the town. When you drive through, you've got Hotspur Tower, Hotspur Place, Hotspur Street,
yep.
Hotspur Terrace, your favourite, Chris, Hotspur Gin.
Yes.
What was his relationship like with Henry IV? Because
Right.
there were turbulent times.
Yeah, that was a key time. 1399, Henry IV came to the throne, and Hotspur was involved. Richard II was king at the time, and Hotspur helped Henry Bolingbroke, as he was called, come to the throne. They captured Richard II. They held him as prisoner, and basically Henry Bolingbroke took over as king, pronounced himself Henry IV, and Hotspur was rewarded by given lots of land, lots of properties, made governor of places like Berwick and Roxburgh, and constable of about 5 or 6 castles, predominantly in Wales. But he was a big friend of Henry IV, and he helped him come to the throne in 1399.
So where did it all go wrong for Harry Hotspur, and how did he die?
Right, very quickly after that, things went wrong, and it's all to do with money. Even back then, in 1399, it was all about money. 1401, Hotspur's involved in a battle in Wales against Owen Glendower, fighting on behalf of Henry IV. Hotspur asks him for £5,000 to keep his army sustained with weapons and food. Henry IV refuses to give him money, so Hotspur brings his army back up to Northumberland. A year later, 1402, in another battle at Homeldon Hill, up near Wooler, Hotspur takes Scottish prisoners, and the normal protocol is you take prisoners, you can keep them and ransom them yourself for a lot of money. Henry IV demands Hotspur hands over his prisoners. Hotspur refuses. It puts him on a collision course. And then a year later, 1403, the Battle of Shrewsbury, Hotspur's army is up against Henry IV's army, and in the middle of battle, Hotspur lifts up his visor to see what's happening in the field of battle, and he's struck in the face and killed. Now for the gory bit. After Hotspur's killed, his body parts are sent to London, Bristol, Chester and Newcastle, and his head's put on the iron railings outside the city gates of York, just to leave a message that you don't mess with the king. But very kindly, once his body parts have rotted, they're all given back to his widow so he can be buried. So he lived a short life, but he was one of Britain's best fighting knights, fighting heroes of that generation.
So I'm going to bring Peter in very shortly. Peter is a Tottenham Hotspur supporter, even though he is still my friend, especially when Newcastle were allowed to beat them 4-0 a few weeks ago. So what's Harry's link to Spurs?
Yeah, to Spurs, right. The story is that the Percy family, they owned a lot of land in London. And at the time there was a cricket team, and they played cricket at Tottenham Marshes, and this was land that was owned by the Percy family. And these gentlemen who owned the cricket team, they wanted something to do in the winter, so they wanted to play football in the winter. So they were also keen fans of Shakespeare, and their favourite play was Henry IV. And in Henry IV, one of their best artists in the play was Hotspur. So they thought, right, we play cricket on Tottenham Marshes, owned by the Percys. Our favourite actor is Henry IV, he's Hotspur. So they took the name Hotspur, and that's why they're called Tottenham Hotspur.
So even a football team from London influenced by the Percy family all the way up here and now.
Absolutely.
There's so much history in our town, which brings us nicely on to Peter. Like I say, a historian colleague, but also an author. Can you just show us your book to the camera there, please?
Yeah, that's the little book I've written about, it's called The Tale of Two Castles, as you can see. And it's about the Alnwick connection to the Smithsonian institution.
So Chris is
Washington.
talking about the 1300s, so we're going to now jump almost 400 years to the first Duke and Duchess of Northumberland.
That's right. First Duke and Duchess of Northumberland, made Duke and Duchess in 1766. The thing at that time was the Percy name by then had come through the female line.
Right.
So a girl called Elizabeth in 1740 actually married a Yorkshire landowner called Sir Hugh Smithson. And when they married, Smithson agreed to take the Percy name. And that's how the name continues down to today.
Still within the bloodline.
That's right. Happy marriage by all accounts.
Right.
But apparently they both have lots of affairs. So perhaps that's why it was happy.
I love history.
So the Duke has an affair with a lady called Elizabeth Macy, and she's a lady from near Bristol, a village called Weston near Bristol, and she's really well connected actually. She can trace her ancestry back to a family called the Hungerfords. Thomas Hungerford in 1378 was the first recorded speaker of the House of Commons. And another line of her ancestry, she could trace it back to a guy called Edward Seymour. And Edward Seymour was the brother of Jane Seymour, who was the third wife of Henry VIII. So she had a really good lineage, if you like. So the Duke has an affair with this lady. They meet in Bath. Both the Duke and Duchess have fairly independent lives. They travel quite a lot themselves. So it wouldn't be too difficult for the Duke to meet Mrs. Macy. They meet in Bath. Both the Duke and the Duchess have suffer quite badly from gout. So Bath, apparently, the waters in Bath are a good cure for gout, apparently. So the Duke has an affair with this lady, and the result is an illegitimate son called James Smithson. Now, the Duke just cuts him out completely. He refuses to acknowledge him. So, of course, Smithson grows up very bitter about the whole thing.
As you would.
As he would. How he's denied his inheritance, etc. But he's a clever guy, though, and he goes to Oxford. Now, his mother, Elizabeth Macy, ensures that he is fully aware of his lineage, if you like, that go back
His
to
heritage, yeah.
And she is keen to make sure that he knows that the Duke of Northumberland is his natural father. So he goes to Oxford. He's a clever lad, and he studies chemistry and mineralogy, which are subjects in their infancy in those days. And he becomes really well known in his lifetime in those fields. I think he publishes about 27 papers in his lifetime. So he becomes well known. He becomes friends with lots of the eminent scientists of the day, people like Henry Cavendish, and people like that. He becomes the youngest member of the Royal Society when he joins at that time. So he's really well known in those fields. He accrues a fortune by his own lifetime, by his own efforts in his lifetime, and never marries. And when he dies in Genoa in Italy in 1829. And when he dies, he first of all leaves his money to his nephew. Now, his nephew never actually married either, so there were no children there. So there was a further provision in the will that if that happened, his money had to therefore go to America, and it had to be used for the foundation of an institution for science and learning, and that's how the Smithsonian Institution in Washington is founded. It's the legacy of the illegitimate son of the first Duke of Northumberland here. So that's a pretty good legacy, because today the Smithsonian is the world's largest museum and research complex. They have places all over the world. As I say, a really good legacy. So all due to the first Duke of Northumberland, basically.
I mean, this is just the most amazing tale that a lot of people don't know.
They don't.
You know, the Percy family been here since 1309. They're still here now, and we spoke about Harry Hotspur. And even from the first Duke, the Smithsonian Institute all stems from Alnwick.
That's right, from Alnwick. Yeah.
What a legacy our town has.
That's right.
Just show them the book once more there,
Yep.
Peter.
And that it's a book called A Tale of Two Castles, because obviously you've got the Alnwick Castle connection,
Yep.
but the original Smithsonian building in Washington is actually nicknamed the Castle, because as you can see, it looks a wee bit like a small castle, rather ironically in view of Smithson's views, etc. So, yeah.
Well, like I say, thank you, Chris.
That's a great story to tell American visitors. They absolutely love that story.
Is that the win-win, is it?
That's the win-win.
So we've talked about Harry Hotspur. So basically, over 700 years of history in our town. From Alnwick Town TV, I'd like to say thank you very much to Chris Routledge.
Cheers, Alan. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much to my friend
Pleasure,
Peter Smith.
You're welcome.
And
Thank you.
from Alnwick Town TV, we look forward to seeing you again soon. Until then,
Cheers.
bye-bye for now.
Cheers. Bye-bye for now.